All right. Welcome to the Rise Up podcast. I am your host, Jonah Mitchell. And on this show, I do my best to help you rise up to your potential by simplifying everything that goes into the weight loss and personal health, personal growth, even systems, and simplifying them to make them make sense and fit your life, right? Because the biggest reason most people struggle, and it's one of my biggest beliefs, the biggest reason people struggle to get to where they want to go is because they continue to get in their own way unknowingly, right? With unforeseen rules that they learn from other people without really any understanding or context, or they've had past quote unquote successes that have helped them see physical results on the scale, but they didn't really last very much. So they've distorted our reality and what it takes to feel successful, to create success when it comes to our overall health and well-being. And if this is the first time tuning in, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I love being able to get the opportunity to help you. If you're one of my listeners, one of my clients, I appreciate you being here. I hope this helps. If you've had meetings with me before, you understand that I say a lot of the same things over and over again, so that it starts to stick, right? And today's episode is going to be something I teach a lot, right? Because one of the most difficult parts of a weight loss journey is not always the weight loss in general. Sometimes it's keeping the weight off, right? And I had actually, this is usually the case, most of the case. Like, we can lose weight, and for a short period of time, we found success in the past, but it hasn't really gotten to the point where we can maintain the weight that we lose, right? It always fluctuates. It gets very frustrating. It gets very annoying. It gets stagnant. And that's the most difficult, and that's the most annoying aspect, right? Most frustrating aspect of our weight loss journeys. Even if you do struggle with losing weight in general, right? Even if we did lose the weight, right? If I snap my fingers right now and you had the dream body, the dream weight, would all your problems be gone? And the vast majority of people that ask this question, they always say no, because there's always some underlying issue, our relationship with our food, our relationship with ourselves, behaviors that don't serve us, beating ourselves up, and so many underlying things that ultimately become the real issue, and not just that we're eating carbs or we have a sweet tooth, right? Like there's so many of these things that we need to be aware of first. And one of the most fundamental skills that I believe anyone can develop is what we're going to be talking about today. The 3 steps needed to keep the weight off, right? 3 steps to essentially, it's the 3 steps that help you acquire the skill that are going to make the choices you make much easier and align with how you want to live your life, right? Because actually, before I go, if you learned something today, I always forget this. If you find this helpful, please share it with just one person, or just let somebody know. Like that, just I appreciate any form of sharing, talking about. The more I get to help, the more I get to fulfill the job that I love the most. You know what I mean? So anyway, if it's no trouble, please share the show. If you share it on social media, please tag me. I love seeing all that. It's really very exciting. And yeah, that's all. And any other resources that I have are all in my social media, and they're listed in the show notes as well. If you want to do a little bit deeper dive, or you want to see some of my shorter video stuff, that's fine. That's in the show notes as well. So the 3 steps needed to keep the weight off, right? And the 3 steps that we're going to go over are the 3 steps that are going to help you develop the skill to know exactly how to make the most aligned choice for you, no matter what the situation has, right? Because there's a lot of things that people really get in their head about when it comes to maintaining consistency, maintaining the weight that they lose. Is life will always be throwing curveballs, right? And our ability to understand that we can be doing the best that we can do the best we can and still be making progress is truly the most underrated skill. Not tracking calories, not always meal prepping, just being in control of the choices that we want to make. This is going to allow all the mechanical sides of weight loss, the tracking your calories, the hitting your workouts, right, hitting your protein goals, all of that. It's going to allow those to amplify, because they're going to actually support you and it's going to support you and your goals, and reinforce how you want to live your life, right? If we can do this, if we can understand this skill, again, it's not only going to make weight loss a little bit easier, but it's going to make weight maintenance a lot easier. Because now, like I said earlier, if I snap my fingers and you had the body that you wanted, you had the weight that you wanted, would all your problems be gone? If the answer is no, right, this skill is going to help you address those things now. This is where I usually start with my clients who struggle with the mental side of losing weight and all or nothing tendencies, and they get in their head very easily because a lot of the choices that they make, they're either super on point and super perfect, and it leads to like, oh, this is the only way I can see results. And then if one thing slips up, if it feels like everything is slipping up, and then they just kind of throw their hands up in the air and say, fuck it, none of this matters. And then they go on the other side of the spectrum where they're not doing anything, and it's just this constant negative feedback loop of they know they should be doing more, they know they should be doing better, but since it's not everything, it's no change. Since everything isn't getting in a much better place, it doesn't make any sense to make any change at all. Which again, neither is truly ideal with how we want to live our life, right? If you have kids or if you have loved ones who, the second they stumble because life does throws them something that they weren't able to account for, right, and they just give up and throw their hands up in the air, would we sit there and support their decision, or would we talk to them? Would we ask them, is that truly how you want to respond, right? Is that how you want to behave, right? We usually, when it's somebody we care about, we usually have the great pieces of advice. But when it comes to ourselves and looking ourselves in the mirror, it's never good enough. We can't look ourselves in the mirror, right? It's not fair. I'm the exception. I should be able to do this, right? So this is what we're gonna do to break it, right? This is how we're gonna break this cycle. So the first part in developing the skill to always make the most aligned choice that you can, that's going to help you maintain the weight, is identifying the pattern, becoming aware of the pattern, and catching yourself. I did a recent presentation with the Transformation Project, and we went over how to help your body start to thrive with you instead of just survive all the time. And a disconnected mind from your body makes it really hard for your body want to thrive because there's a lot of stress that goes on, right? So if we can identify the pattern to which we start making choices that don't really align with our goals, right? Not fix them, just align, just become aware of like, this is happening, and when this happens, I do this. And because I do this, this is how I feel, right? So for example, I usually I'm really good as long as I get a meal in at the beginning of the day. When I don't get a meal in the beginning of the day, I feel like I set myself up for not being able to make many positive choices. I'm usually reactive, and I'm way hungrier at the end of the day, so I start stuffing my face and start snacking. And at the end of the day, after I stuff my face, I feel overly full, I feel overly bloated, I'm very annoyed, I'm very frustrated. I knew better. I knew I should have done better. So that's a very simplified version or story, I guess, because that one's fresh. It's actually something one of my clients is working through right now. So the problem is if I don't set myself up for success, if I don't get something at the beginning of the day, even when things are a bit tough, I can see that a lot of negative behaviors start to happen. And then and I don't like that feeling. I usually end up beating myself up. I usually feel way worse when that happens. So how can I identify that pattern and make sure that I don't fall down that negative path anymore, right? Well, the simple one for this scenario is just eat something. Doesn't mean it has to be the healthiest thing, but just eat something at the start of the day, because when we do that, we're reinforcing that we can make positive choices. We're reminding ourselves that we are setting ourselves up for success. So if we do that and we just practice, just make that choice first, right? I want to use a little bit of a different example. This one's more involving stress, right? Someone who has a stressful life, stressful job, right? Typically moms who have a lot going on at all times, right? It's very difficult to understand and control everything, right? So if they aren't able to control everything, it's very hard to acknowledge the fact that maybe a one or two choices that are a little bit better than where they were before is good enough, right? So when we have a lot of stress and we come home and we just kind of drink wine, zone out, veg out on TV, we can look and say, well, how do we feel when we do those things, right? Well, every time I do that, I feel frustrated. I feel annoyed. I know I could be doing more. I know I could be doing better. I know I shouldn't be eating as much or drinking as much as I am, but it's so hard for me to change this. And it's like, okay, it's hard to change it because we're not aware of the pattern yet. Right. Well, what leads you to wanting to veg out and drink and snack after work, after the day, right? After you're done, like, why is this happening? And I love telling people that every behavior is trying to get to one goal. It's trying to get to a reward. And usually our behaviors are there to try and help us feel better. It doesn't care about your weight loss goals. It just cares about solving the short-term stressor, right? And usually snacking, drinking, vegging out, and stopping and numbing all the noise that's going on in our head solves the short-term problem, but then leads to long-term consequences because because they're not always in alignment with how we want to feel or how we want to look physically. And now we're just perpetuating this difficult relationship with ourselves over and over and over again because we're just allowing the loop to keep playing on repeat. It's like I feel stressed, I drink and I veg out and I snack on a lot of things that I don't really align with my health goals, but I feel better while that's happening. But immediately after that, I feel miserable, I feel annoyed, I feel frustrated, right? Again, we're always trying to get a reward and a short-term solution. If we don't think of the long-term consequences, and consequences aren't always bad, there's always consequences, right? If we can catch that pattern and say, hey, I always do this if we can catch it before it happens, right? And we can say, this is how I always react, and give ourselves 5 seconds just to process, is this actually in alignment with myself? Is this actually how I want to behave during the situation? Yes or no, why or why not, right? If we can give ourselves that time to process and say, yes, I actually want the wine or the cookie or whatever it is, right? Then now you have no reason to beat yourself up for it because now you're agreeing to the consequence of it may not solve your long-term problem of your health and your weight loss goals, but hey, you're acknowledging the fact that it's okay to solve the short-term problem right now, right? Or you go through this, and my voice just cracked. You go through this and you say, okay, I'm reacting in a way that doesn't actually align with where I want to go. And I don't want to respond this way. I don't want to veg out and eat the cookies and the sweets and all the shitty snacks and feel miserable later, right? I may want to actually just focus on getting a more nutrient dense meal. I'm actually getting ahead of myself. I want to spend I want to do something else that's going to help me get a similar reward, right? I don't want to do this because I'm going to feel shitty. So I want to try something different, right? When you do this, you start breaking the neural connections. The way we think and the way we operate is all in connections inside of your brain. And it's hard to break habits because the way our brain is wired to work, when we have a thought, when we have a stimulus, a select group of pathways go off at the same time, and it's just automatic, right? If we can catch ourselves, we stop that loop, we stop those connections, and then our brain is forced to make new pathways, new connections, right? Because now you're stopping, now you're catching yourself and becoming aware of the behavior. And this is where it leads to step 2. If we become aware of the negative behavior, right, or the behavior that doesn't align with our goals, then we learn that a small and manageable step is better than nothing at all. It doesn't mean that it's just going to go away just because now you catch it. You'll be like, okay, I catch it, so now I'll never do it again. No, that's not how this works. You have to practice catching yourself. You have to acknowledge the fact that this is going down a path that doesn't work for you. And you have to continue to catch it over and over and over again. And once you stop the pattern that goes off in your head, those connections that fire all at the same time, then you start to think of new behaviors, of new ideas to deal with the situation. That's going to create new patterns, new thought patterns. They're going to help you move to a place that is much more aligned with your health and your well-being, right? And this is where small wins come into play. Like the huge win is just acknowledging and catching yourself, catching it in the moment, saying, this is not how I want to respond. Every time I do this, I feel shitty. Acknowledge that. Good job. The hardest part is catching yourself and understanding it. It's like, I'm just doing this because I'm trying to feel a little bit better. So how can we feel a little bit better? Right. And like I said a little bit earlier, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Right. When we catch that and say, I'd rather go for a walk. I'd rather go clean the kitchen. I'd rather just stand up and breathe for a second. I'd rather separate and do something that's going to align with me and not make me feel as shitty as if I were to go down the other path that I usually go down, right? It's not a bad thing. None of this is bad. Like if you have a hard time breaking a habit, it's not because you're a piece of shit. It's not because you don't have enough willpower, right? It's because you're trying to just change it all at once. And if you can acknowledge the fact that you can't change it overnight, because even if you do get to a point where you have this skill of just being able to make aligned decisions consistently, right? And that helps you show up the best way you can in any scenario. That part of you that used to go and snack and veg out on the couch and just make a bunch of decisions that really didn't align with us doesn't go away. There's going to be times where that's going to still pop up, and you're going to have to look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, well, this is a great opportunity for me to acknowledge the fact that I'm trying to go back to what I used to do and still practice the things that help me feel better. Right. So then this is why the power of small steps is very, very important, because not only are we just checking off a box of like, okay, maybe I'll just go eat a nutrient dense snack. Right. We're acknowledging the fact that we're catching the behavior. And when we catch the behavior and we shift to something small where we're just standing up and and interrupting the pattern that we usually go into, right? Then we start to look for more opportunities. We start to train our brain. I feel like I've had many episodes like this where we start to train our brain how to respond in a much more aligned way, so that we tip the figurative scale in our favor, that we can stay awake when life stressors try to make us fall back on what we used to know. We stay awake and we stay mindful, and we impose our true desires, right? Not our reactive desires, our true desires, in a way that aligns with how we want to feel, because we don't like feeling like shit. We like feeling like we're in control, like we're doing our best. So then we catch that, and we have a small adjustment, right? What's an activity that can help me feel a little bit better that doesn't require drinking or eating something, right? Something small, right? I don't care what it is. I don't care what it is. If it's journaling, if it's meditating, if it's breathing, if it's going for a walk, if it's sewing, if it's walking up and down your stairs, I don't care. Just something that helps you feel a little bit present with yourself, that takes some of the stress off of you, so that you can continue to practice and show up the best way you can, right? And once you have these first two skills where you can catch yourself in the behavior and you understand how to pivot to something small that helps you feel a little bit better, right? This leads to step 3. Being able to make the most aligned choice is about accommodating to a situation, right? This actually happened to one of my clients very recently, right? All or nothing tendencies, and she likes to have a lot of things in control, and when something slips up, it's very easy for her to feel like everything is slipping, everything is falling out of control, right? And then we make choices that we eat a sweet, and it's very easy to say, well, this whole day is out of whack, so might as well just say fuck it and throw it out the window, right? Well, in reality, let's say, okay, we got to give ourselves some context to the whole situation and accommodate. This is what step 3 is accommodation to the current stimulus. Our body and our brain is always trying to adapt. I need you to understand this. It's always trying to adapt to what we're telling it. If we're always in a stressful environment, a stressful state, it's always going to be trying to find ways to feel better. And if we're one of those people who feels out of control and just spirals to the point where we just say, fuck it, doesn't really matter anymore, and we just start making a bunch of decisions that don't truly align with us, right? And we don't interrupt that. This is the negative feedback loop, right? But if we can take a situation where we catch ourselves and say, I'm behaving in a way that I know I respond in, right? And I remember, okay, all I need to do is something small, right? Maybe I haven't made the most aligned choices today, but I still have the rest of the day. How can I accommodate and remind myself? Because we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. How can I remind myself that I'm still doing the best that I can, right? Is that preparing a more nutrient-dense dinner? Is that modifying the rest of your meals for the rest of the day? Is that limiting snacks? Is that prioritizing your water for the rest of the day? Is that prioritizing protein for the rest of the day? Is that making sure we get some form of exercise at the end of the day? Like, whatever it is, how can we accommodate? How can we give ourselves a break to know that, hey, I don't need to go down the same path. I can make a much more aligned decision. I can feel better because I like feeling better, right? All our body and our brain is trying to do when we're doing things that don't truly align with it, that we beat ourselves up for, all it's trying to do is feel a little bit better. It doesn't know that it's damaging, that it's hurting it, because it's what you learned, it's what you've practiced. And this is difficult to break because you have a deep rooted ability to fall back on this behavior, on this tendency, and catching it, giving yourself the ability to understand that something small is better than nothing at all, and accommodate to the situation, allows you to be to make a much more aligned decision. Not only when you're in the process of trying to lose weight, but once you're there, once you have the ideal body and ideal goal that you want, right? Now you have the ability to make sure that this stays the same way. It stays the same, or it stays this way. There we go. It stays this way. Because the reason why most of us struggle is because of those behaviors, those tendencies that put us in that place where we were unhappy, where we were uncomfortable with our body physically, right? We lose control and we get very frustrated because we react impulsively. instead of proactively. We're not proactive with our choices. And all it takes is just acknowledging the behavior and how it makes us feel, and acknowledging that we don't like feeling that way, and making a small change to the usual reaction that we have, something that aligns with us a little bit better. And aligning doesn't always mean make the healthy choice, right? Because doesn't always mean the healthiest choice. Sometimes having the glass of wine can be beneficial for your mental state in that situation, right? But having a whole bottle in alignment with you, right? There's a line, there's discrepancy, but this is what it takes to create something sustainable. And sustainability is how we keep the results, right? If we can create something in the process that we like doing, that acknowledges how we want to feel, and we do our best to avoid those feelings of negativity, of discomfort, because of behaviors and of choices that don't truly align with us, this is where sustainability and permanence start to manifest, where you get to keep the results for the long run, right? It starts here. It's a mental game, right? And if you can get this down, right, then it can build into the mechanical things of hitting 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, of hitting 300 to 500 calories below your deficit, of exercising 3 to 5 times a week in a way that helps you improve muscle tone and focus on fat loss, right? All that mechanical stuff is cool, but none of the logical mechanical stuff helps with the mental side if we always react in a way that doesn't align with where we want to go. And if we act in a way that we don't want to behave in, we act in a way that makes us feel like we're out of control, that pulls us out of that place of feeling like we can make the choices and feel confident in them, right? This is where you start to not only solidify your success on your weight loss journey, but the sustainability. If it's not sustainable, it's probably not going to work. Even if you found success in the past with weight loss, right? Was it in a way that you could have done for the rest of your life? If you don't plan on cutting out carbs for the rest of your life, keto probably isn't the best decision for you. If you don't plan on eating 400 to 800 calories a day, Octavia is probably not the way for you, right? If you don't always want to be tracking calories, maybe practicing always knowing what is going into your body isn't the way for you, right? Those can help in certain avenues, right? Especially tracking calories. Tracking calories is very beneficial, but if it becomes this prison that we create for ourselves, right? Is that really how we want to live? And this ability to understand yourself, understand the choices, and make the most aligned choice for you. I've been saying this, I've been teaching this a lot, so this is why I want to make a podcast episode about it. If you can truly understand that and give yourself the ability to trust in the choice that you make, it's going to completely change your life. So no matter what's going on, you can always find a way to make progress. You can always remind yourself that you are showing up the best way you can, and sometimes that's good enough. And when the storm passes, when we have that ability to be kind to ourselves, to make the most aligned choice, right? And we can fall back on a routine that really aligns with us, that we like doing because we like how we feel, then mechanical stuff and like the active pursuit stuff gets so much easier. So much easier. I hope that made sense. I think I always end these episodes, but I hope that made sense, because I write this down, but I just want you to hear me. And I feel like, I say a lot of similar things over and over again because this is something I needed to learn. I still need to learn, right? Just because we get to a point where we feel like we're in control doesn't mean we always make the best decisions. We just get better at catching ourselves and saying, hey, this is okay. Sorry, didn't mean for my phone to pop off there. It's okay. All right, for us to catch ourselves and be like, hey, this is how I usually respond, but this is not how I want to respond. And then we change it with small acts to train our brain what to focus on, and we learn to use those small acts those small changes in every scenario that we run into, being it eating out, being it in a public scenario or anything like that, right? Where we feel a little bit more out of control, and we know we can remind ourselves that we're still doing the best we can. It's a game changer, truly game changer. And this is what leads to the sustainability. It makes weight loss a lot easier. When I used to call this the Weight Loss is Easy podcast, this is what I was trying to communicate. If you can handle this, if you get past this part, if you get to this point and you feel confident in the choice that you make, right, everything else gets so much easier because you're no longer getting in your way. And then the diet is actually as impactful and manageable, and it's something that you can do because you have rewired your relationship with it. You learn to incorporate foods that you want in a way that aligns with you, and you stop being an asshole to yourself. and you show up the best way you can, the way that you want to. All right. It was fun. It was a fun one. I'm trying to get better at this. It's been super busy, so these episodes have been coming out randomly, but still doing the best I can to get them out. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. If you did, again, I appreciate it if you share it with at least one person. If you share it on social medias, please tag me. I love being able to help impact people, even if I don't ever talk to you directly. It means a lot that you listen. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you on the next one.